Come on in and act like you've got good sense. Unlike me. And I know, much to many of your dismay, you looked up here this morning and said, him again? Goodness gracious. Goodness gracious. Can we stand it another week? So, well, I've really enjoyed it. This is my third opportunity to speak to you guys this quarter, and I enjoy the lessons, and I enjoy the men that I've been given because there's so much in the Bible about them. I think Gehazi, I like to pronounce it, is probably, there may be up to 20 verses on him in the Bible. I don't know. Somewhere it's a big number, but it's a big story. It's a very interesting. And he is mentioned one other time outside of 2 Kings 5. Later on in Kings, he's mentioned. But chronologically, I think that was before this happened, because it did not mention any of his maladies at that particular point in time. This morning we're talking about Gehazi, and it's just, we'll start out by doing just a little bit of a paraphrased reading, as I call it. I'm going to put some scriptures up there, and I'm going to give you my paraphrasing of those as we go, so y'all can see what we're talking about. Gehazi, a servant of Elisha, a man of God, and then, so we know the characters we studied last week. And anyway, but, Gehazi was thinking, hey, Naaman, we spared you. That's what we did. And you brought some stuff to give to the Lord, but we didn't take it. And said, so you know what? I've got an idea. I'm going to chase down Naaman, and I'm going to tell him that we've changed our mind. So Gehazi followed after Naaman, and when he saw him, Naaman came running, he came running down and got off his chariot, and I'm sure Naaman was thinking, has the warranty run out on this healing? Because he quickly got down there, so he was thinking, man, there must be something bad. No. There's nothing wrong here. All is well. But my master has sent me saying, hey, I got these two other preachers coming in here, and they're going to need some money. And he failed to mention that when you were here the last time. So I just want to let you know about it. So Naaman said, okay, that sounds good to me. I tried to give you all this money to begin with. How much money was it we were talking about last week? You remember? It's about $4.5 million. It was a lot of money. So anyway, Naaman urged him. He said, well, here's 2 talents of silver and 2 changes of clothes. And as we discussed last week, these were not just little bitty changes of clothes. This was royal made clothing, so it's very expensive. The value of what I was able to research and find on the 2 talents of silver and the clothing came up to about $40,000 or $50,000. But so Naaman goes back. Men are taking all the stuff for him, and when he gets back, he goes inside. And when he gets there, he went before his master, which was Elisha. And Elisha said, "Hey, where you been?" And what did Gehazi say? "Well, I haven't been anywhere." "What are you talking about?" "I don't know what you're talking about." "Well, and Elisha basically said, "My spirit went with you. I know what's going on here, basically. And you've come in here and lying to me about all this stuff, and now you've turned out against me with the man in the chariot." That didn't work. There it is. "Is this a time for us to go and get money? Is this a time for us to receive garments, olive yards, vineyards, and sheep, oxen, men servants, maid servants?" No, that's not what this was about. This is not what this was about at all. And then what happened? Leprosy. Because he had not obeyed God's will, leprosy came upon Gehazi immediately. And not only him, but who else? His family. For how long? Forever. All the generations of your family are going to be affected by leprosy because of what you did. That seems pretty harsh. His family didn't sin, but God knows the heart. That's a big difference that we don't know, but God knows the heart. So he left and his skin was white. You know, it's seemed at the time like not a big decision. I mean, when you're talking about getting $40,000 out of somebody and they've offered you $4.5 million, that's not a lot. Not a lot at all. Is that, if my math serves me correctly, that's about 1%? 10% would be 450,000, so I said we know 1%, you know. Alt times alt's alt. Jethro Bodine tell you that. But it led to such big consequences. Big consequences. Now, this story in the Bible, like we said with Naaman and with Gehazi, it was not a big, old, long, lengthy thing in the Bible, but such an important story for us all to know about. But first, let's talk a little bit about words and how they can manipulate. Let's hit the other button. We can manipulate our words real easily, and you can make it sound really good. And just like we said last week, we can say those words so often that God will allow us to believe that lie. So he keeps saying these words to me. It's okay if I get some of that money. I'm going to bring it back here. We're going to do good with it and all that kind of stuff. But that's not what was said to do. He didn't say to do that. So his words were one thing, but his character was something else. And that's what we've got to be careful with as well. What our words say is one thing, but God looks at our heart, and the people look at us. They know our character by the way we act and the way we do things. So it's a lot different than sometimes we would want to think. Sin has a cost. And sin, when it's hidden, it's really never hidden. You can't hide it. Somebody is going to know about it. And if it's not somebody, it's God. Because he knows what's going on. You can't hide from him. It's not going to happen that way. Now, what did leprosy cause? When you were a leper back then, what did they decide to do? Isolation. You were cast out. You were to be away from everybody. You don't get near anybody. If anybody comes near you, what'd you have to say? Unclean, unclean. It was a bad situation. Now you think about Gehazi, there he was working with Elisha, right-hand man, and then all of a sudden he's shunned. He's turned completely away. And not only him, but all of his family. This was a great isolation that happened just almost immediately. It's a reality. Now, what is leprosy called today? Hansen's disease. We do have a cure for it today. Back then, there was no cure for it. Hansen's disease. So luckily, they do have a cure for it. But back then, it was a death sentence. It was a life sentence because you were shunned. Not only was it a sentence, just because of the illness itself, but just being put away from everybody. And how difficult that must have been. Now, you take somebody like me that's very introverted and very quiet. What are y'all laughing about? It would be hard on me, I can guarantee you that. It would be tough on me. It's just crazy. But now, what we're going to do a little bit differently, since we've covered all of Gehazi now, but we're going to compare him to some other things that happened in the Bible that are just as important. And we're going to see how that lesson ties back into us today. So we're going to talk about Gehazi in the New Testament. Now, as soon as we start going down through here, things are going to start going through your mind. Say, oh, yeah, that'd be a good one. Yeah, I see how that one tie in. But probably the one person that we all think about when we think about a Gehazi in the New Testament is who? Judas. And he said unto him, he said, I'll give him to you. I'll show you Jesus. I'll identify him for 30 pieces of silver, which was what? $300 in today's money. That's sad. Now that is as bad as it gets. And we know what it led to. And we know that he was a man that was close to Jesus. He was chosen by Jesus to be an apostle. But yet, he fell away this way. I mean, it's unthinkable that somebody that close could fall away so quickly. How about Ananias and Sapphira? We all know the story of Ananias and Sapphira. They had sold some land, and then they were going to give it all to God. So Ananias and Sapphira got together and said, hey, let's keep some of that money. They don't know what we sold it for. They haven't been down to the courthouse yet to see what we registered the deed or not. So they decided they would keep part of that money. So when it comes time to give the money, what did Ananias say? This is all of the money? This is all of it? And then he said, I don't think so. I think you're holding back on me. And I don't think this is all the money. Matter of fact, I know it's not. And you know it's not. And what happened to him? Bam, bam, hit the floor immediately. Well, Sapphira wasn't home, but that already concocted their story. She wasn't home, and she got home a little while later, and there they were, and they said, hey, what about that money? So, yeah, we're going to give it all. We gave it all. That's what we're going to do. Another lie. He said, well, the men who carried Ananias out are here to carry you out because you're going to be just as dead as he is, just in a second. Bam. Gone. Do what? An humble servant in submission. Yeah, that's my line. Myra and I'll be going somewhere, and I'll make a wrong turn or something. And she said, well, I told you it's right back. I said, it's that woman you gave me, Lord. Anything that goes wrong, it's that woman you gave me. I don't know. What else can I do? But anyway, so yeah, just boom, boom. Those are two people who are gone. Now, opposite from Judas, did these people have sort of the right mind? He knew what he was doing. He kept up with the money. He knew what he was doing. How about Ananias and Sapphira? Well, they were sort of in the middle, maybe a little bit more to the left than they needed to be, and they said, well, we'll give it all, but we're going to keep some of it. They were not. That's a big, 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 big point. They were not required to do this. They wanted to do it, but they wanted to do it on their terms. Instead of saying, yeah, they could have easily, like Sam said, they could have easily said, we'll take half, you take half. Would that have been okay? Yeah, it would have been fine. But that's not what they chose to do. Well, nobody's going to know about this, so, and like Brenda said, and if something happens, there's that woman you gave me. So that's what happened. And, you know, Satan just took over their heart. Yes, ma'am.
Because they obviously wanted the praise of everyone else that they had sold them.
Yeah, exactly. They wanted the praise of men rather than the praise of God, I guess. You know, they were just hey, look at us. We gave everything. We gave it all. But they didn't. And the person that needed to be impressed by this was very unimpressed. Because, remember we talked about the words sounded good, but the character flaw was there. So that's a big difference. You know, you can make your words sound very good. I mean, you could be very convincing to the people at the door that came and said, this is it. But these weren't ordinary people they were talking to. So anyway, so that didn't work out too good. How about another one? This is a little bit different. The rich young ruler. What happened in this story? He said, he was preached to and all this kind of stuff, and he really, really, really wanted to become a Christian. And his words were good. He had a decent character, but he had another flaw. His love was in the wrong spot. He said, I would like to do this. Since I'm grown up, I've been obeying your commandments, obeying the commandments ever since I've grown up. All my life I've done those things. Said, well, good. And, and Jesus loved him for what he had been. But he said he wanted to know, what else do I need to do? What else can I do? He said, well, just sell everything you got. Give it to the poor and take up your cross and follow me. And he walked away very, 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 very sad because his possessions were great. Sounds good. Oh, I'll do it, Jesus. I'll do anything you say do. Just tell me what you want me to do. And Jesus looked right in here, and he knew the one thing that he wouldn't do, and that was give up all his possessions. And he knew he wasn't going to do it, and that's sad. With us today, in our character, what does God look at us, and what's he asking us to give up? I'm sorry, Brenda.
Asking us to give up self.
Yeah.
Surrender our life totally to him. That's everything that we have.
Yeah. Give up ourselves. Give up everything we've got. Is it wrong to have wealth? No. Is it wrong to have nice things? No. When is it wrong when you have those things? When they become ahead of everything else. when everything you've got is more important than God, it's more important than your salvation, then that's where you get into trouble. You know, right after this talks about the camel going through the eye of the needle. And of course, growing up, I always think, there ain't no way a camel's going through an eye of a needle. And then later on, somebody enlightened me, and I guess they're telling the truth, about the eye of the needle being a rock formation, and the camels had to get down on their knees to get through it. Now, they could get through it, but it was hard. And the same way Jesus says, it can be done, but it's hard. So he wasn't telling us that it's impossible. But if you just read that scripture, you think, that's impossible. But if you learn more about it, then you understand, well, it is possible. Another person with a short time in the Bible was Demas. Does everybody remember Demas? A little bit about him? I mean, there's so much written about him in the Bible. About 3 verses. But there he was, going around with Luke and Paul and Peter. And then what happened to him? For Demas has forsaken me, having loved the present world. So Demas left them while they're out on preaching and just left them. And why did he leave them? He loved the world more. I don't know what his temptation was. I have no idea. Something in the world. Exactly. We don't know what it was. Yes. Very upset. It's funny how that, we can be there, be in that place, and think about those things, and then all of a sudden you're gone. It's sad to think about. It really is. I know there's many times that we probably think in our lives, there is nothing that could take me away from God and Jesus. There is nothing that could take me away. Well, you better be careful saying that, because you'll be tested to see how close that really is. That's scary. That's very scary. Because there are things out there that will tempt you, and the devil is a pretty smart fella. He's pretty smart, because he lets us begin to hear our own words about how great we are, and that we're hiding behind this character, but that character has a flaw. It's not visible to everybody. It may be visible to that woman that God gave me. I don't know. But it may be visible to somebody. There's somebody out there that knows that flaw. And you can't hide it. There is no hidden sin. How about Simon the sorcerer? What did he want to do? What was his deal in the Bible? Simon the sorcerer wanted to be just like the apostles. I lay my hand on you, you're healed. I say so and so, you're well. I do this, that happens. Words sound good, again, but character flaw. He thought he could buy it. He thought he could buy it. Do you think there's any possible way, or do you think there's ever been an instance where people think they can buy their Christianity? How is that? Give me an example or two.
Large gifts, sacrifice of time, all kinds of things. I can do all this, but it's nothing if it's not for the right reason.
There have been people who've made donations to churches to build a new wing on, to buy new vehicles, whatever it may be, and it sounds great. And is it good for the church at that location? Sure, it helps out. But does that guarantee that that person did it in the right way? No, of course not.
Thinks they can acquire their salvation through their works.
Yeah, can't do it. You can't do, you know, we're not saved by works, we're saved by grace. You can't buy your salvation. It doesn't happen that way. It just doesn't happen that way. So here Simon the sorcerer was, thought, now, what his main goal was here, said, if I can do this, just like the apostles, I'll be a wealthy man. So that doesn't work. It's an investment. That's all it was. It was an investment. How about King Agrippa? This is a little bit different too. You know, we're changing just a little bit as we're going through here. How about King Agrippa? King Agrippa's father, Herod Agrippa, he had some Christians killed, even in the apostles. But the son came along, Herod Agrippa II, and he wasn't quite like his dad. And he gave Paul a chance to speak to him and try to convince him about why or why not he should be imprisoned or beat to death or whatever. And what do we think that Paul preached to King Agrippa? Does it say in the Bible what everything he preached to him? No. Christ and him crucified. Exactly. It's just like we said last week about Philip and the eunuch. And what did Philip teach the eunuch? The Jesus. He preached unto him Jesus. And it's the same thing here with King Agrippa. He preached unto them Jesus. And what did King Agrippa say? Almost, Paul, almost you convinced me to be a Christian. It's close. You're so close. But we're not there. We're so close, but we're not there. And Paul said what? You know, I would rather for you to be all in, just like I am, but where you are now, you're in a bad situation. You're in a bad, bad, bad situation. Maybe someday he would be willing to listen more. We're not told. The irony of this is, forgot to mash my button, but not this one. Naaman was healed. Gehazi was judged. One was far from God, but yet restored. And one who was close to God was removed. All right, let's go back through these stories.
Was he really close?
We don't know. We don't know. There's not that many verses in there to tell us if whether or not he was really close or not. He may have been at one time. That's what I'm saying. We don't know. He could have been very close at one time. He had to have been pretty good or he wouldn't have been Elisha's right-hand man. All right, as we go back through these stories we've just talked about, Judas, how close was he? Hard to point a finger at him up till a certain time. Jesus must have thought he was a pretty good person. You know, that's something that God knows that I'll never know unless I ask him one day. Why was Judas appointed in the first place if you knew who was going to do this?
Somebody had to do it.
But God does not put people on this earth to go to hell. He doesn't. It's free will. And see, that's where we can't get our mind right as the way God does things, because Judas had what? He had his own mind and he had his own choices. Now God knew what he was going to do. But did he still have the choice? Yes. Could it have been somebody else? Yes. But he still had the choice. Still had the choice. Ananias and Sapphira, how close were they? Again, not a whole lot in the Bible about them, but they must have been somewhat convinced of what they were doing, because they were going to sell this land to give all the proceeds. So we don't know. We don't know what changed their minds. Satan comes into your heart when you think you're going to do something good. Sometimes Satan might come in and say, well, now, I'd hold off on that if I was you. I wouldn't do that right now. You can do that later, and you'll be just as good a Christian as you are now. Yeah, if you don't die. But yes, go ahead.
I think we are complicated, and instead of black and white, we tend to be gray.
Yeah.
So I think that Judas could have loved Jesus and have, been committed to him, but Satan has his head as well, and so convinces him this would be a better path of some sort. So, that's why I think we've got to stay in the Word, we've got to stay in prayer, because we can all be so easily persuaded.
Yeah, we live in a black and white world, but all of us want to live in the gray. We want 1 foot in the world and 1 foot over here. That's humans. That's humans. It's really hard, but it is a black and white world, and we know when we're not doing the right thing. We know that. But our words that we speak to ourselves convince us otherwise. Oh, it's all right, don't worry about it. It'll be fine. You're reading way too much into it. It's really not that important. God doesn't need our money. Ananias and Sapphira. Maybe God doesn't need our money. Yes.
Judas, because he was with Christ, he heard everything Christ said, watched him do all the miracles. And then, yet, the Bible says that Satan got into his heart. It didn't say that he didn't try to get in the other heart. And then Judas, with greed, he could have been like, I already got a bag of money, and I can sell them and keep this and make some more. We can do this, no. To the fact that we know that you can't let greed and deceit get into it. But then when Ananias and his wife, they just proving a lie up there who tell them. So, I always wrestle with why he just didn't say, oh, I'm only going to give this.
I know, and you're right, Ronnie. That the Bible doesn't say that the other apostles weren't tempted just like Judas was. I'm sure that they were. We know that they were. But that's not the way that it happened. It happened with Judas. I'm getting way behind. But to me, the greatest irony in the Bible is the chosen people. Here you are, God's chosen people, and you rebel against him and make idols, and then you come back. You want kings, you rebel against them, and you come back. Then you've got judges for a while, then you've got kings for a while, and you've got all these things, and you've got the word, you've got all these teachers right in front of you preaching about Jesus coming. You are so close to the situation. You're right there on top of things. And then what happens? There ain't nothing good come out of Nazareth. He's just a man. He's preaching blasphemy, claiming to be the Son of God. Here he is, out performing all these miracles, just like Ronnie said. Judas saw all that. You're so close to the situation. Why can't you see it? And to me, that's the greatest irony in the Bible, is that there they were, the chosen people that God had set aside and blessed, but yet the entire nation turned their back on him. How close are you to being an almost? Scary thought. You know, what does the Bible say about that? You know, if you think you're mighty, you better watch out, because you're going to fall. Yes, Brenda?
Our own power. We got to stay under the covenant of Christ so that we won't fall.
Right.
Because if it left up to me, I would probably have not response. We don't know what we will be if we don't stay under his protection. Because we don't have the power on our own.
He says, you know, he would love to gather us like chicks underneath his wings, but we don't allow that. We think we do, but we don't. And when you're out there not protected, and you're not in the Word studying and believing and knowing and proving to yourself what is the right way, rightly dividing the Scriptures, how can you rightly divide the Scriptures if you don't know them? How can you do that? You can't. You can't do it. So it is sad knowing that we are close. We are close. I'm not going to sing, even though I can. But I'm going to read the words to this song. Every one of you know it, so you probably could sing along with me if you wanted to sing. Almost persuaded, now to believe. Almost persuaded, Christ to receive. Seems now some soul to say, go Spirit, go thy way. Some more convenient day on thee I'll call. Almost persuaded, come today. Almost persuaded, turn not away. Jesus invites you here. Angels are lingering near. Prayers rise from hearts so dear. Oh, wanderer, come. Almost persuaded, harvest is past. Almost persuaded, doom comes at last. Almost cannot avail. Almost is but to fail. Sad, sad that bitter well. Almost, but lost. I have led that song a gazillion times as the invitation song. And I have seen lots of people stand there with tears in their eyes and won't budge. Now, I'm not the judge. But when we know there's people out there that need to become a Christian, you don't have to be a judge. You know what they need to do. If we've got a brother that's erring, we know what we need to do. But there's one thing that we cannot allow to happen. Almost you persuaded me to be a Christian. Almost Judas did the right thing. Almost Gehazi was right there working in God's kingdom. Almost. Ananias and Sapphira. Almost. The church at Thessalonica. Almost. They were neither hot nor cold. So I'm going to spit you out. Almost. And that's where we've got to catch that line somewhere. Because almost is not good enough. I heard a friend of mine say one time, I just want to make it to heaven just by a string if I can. Well, of course, we all want to make it to heaven. But I don't want to make it by a string. I don't want to make it by a string. Because strings can be broken. Strings can be broken. We can't live that way. Yes, sir.
For us to say that this had anything to do with Gehazi and his eternal situation with God. I think it's a better way for us to look at it in the sense that God dealt with Gehazi in a way that would cause him to understand his dependence upon God for the rest of his life. And it's also something that he visited on his family. Remember Gehazi. Anytime that they would look at their sin, they would be able to be reminded, here's what Gehazi did. He was a man who, for all we know, depended upon God, but God dealt with him in a situation to where he had lost that concept and put him in a situation where he would remember that for the rest of his life and their life as well.
Yeah, I mean, God put it out there that this happened to you, and we don't know what Gehazi did after that. We don't know. It's never told. If it was me, I believe I'd been pretty repentant. But we don't know. We hope that's what happened. The rich young ruler, we don't know what happened. He may have become a Christian. Ananias and Sapphira, dead. We know what happened. Judas, dead. Now, I'm not judging Ananias and Sapphira and Judas. I'm not the judge. That's God's job. But I know this. We cannot walk that line. We cannot walk that line. When the Bible tells us, make your calling and election somewhat safe. Is that what he said? No. Make your calling and election sure. He didn't say be safe about it. He said make your calling and election sure. Now, growing up, in the church that I grew up, like I told you before, you know, conservative was over here, then they were about 5 more steps over. Extremely conservative. Growing up, I had no way to ever feel that I'd made my calling and election sure, except when I came out of the water, right then I felt pretty safe. When I went down front and repented of something, which is about like every week, I felt pretty safe for an hour or two. But we don't have to feel that way. Because, as I said earlier, it's not by works. Any of us are not going to go to heaven because of our works. We need to do works. We need to do good deeds. But that's not what's going to save you. You cannot earn your salvation. You can earn death because the wages of sin is death. But we have to be able to understand the Bible and know what it is and understand God's grace, understand our being and what we're supposed to do, what we're supposed to say, what we're supposed to live, what we're supposed to teach, and stay in it. Now, sometimes we wonder, and I used to think about this when I was a kid. I think, man, I've done some little sin here. I'm going straight to hell if I die right now. But we have God's grace. We can live in grace. And I'm so glad that I found out what it was later on in life. Yes, sir.
To me, the most important strength of all of this is humble yourself before God. Because in every one of those cases, if you look at it, it's like, what was the problem? They either elevated themselves or they weren't putting their trust in God.
Humble yourself before God. If we keep ourselves humble, it's easier to keep yourself in line. If we get proud and boastful, be careful, they'll fall. Well, thank you all. I think we're at the end of our time, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you this morning. And y'all have a good rest of the day, and we look forward to hearing the preacher.